3 weeks back, I was pulled into a planning session with the buyer's compliance team, just as a process anchor, they said. Not a real title, but I didn't care. Titles don't untangle licensing snarls or debug access logs. I'd been with Apex since we operated out of a strip mall office with a flickering neon sign. The break room still had a coffee maker labeled property of Dr. Stein. Back then, nothing ran unless I touched it. User provisioning, audit trails, vendor syncs, you name it, I kept it alive. I knew where the compliance gaps hid and who'd swept them under the rug. But lately the air had changed. Memos started floating with buzzwords like efficiency pivot and role consolidation. I got yanked from 2 critical workflows and reassigned to policy archiving, which is HR code for sit tight while we plot your exit. Then came the Wednesday briefing, billed as a standard prep for the buyer's final audit Q&A. I walked in with my compliance binder, tabs, checklists, risk matrices. I'd burned midnight oil 4 nights that week, ensuring the failover protocols were crystal clear, not just tech jargon. The room was packed with glossy loafers and shifty glances. At the head sat Brandon, not his real name, but it suits him. He'd rolled in 5 months ago, armed with a LinkedIn bio screaming disruptive value architect and a resume tied to a failed NFT venture that torched $3 million in a month. His only qual? A cousin in the C-suite. I knew he was gunning for clout, but I didn't expect him to aim for my badge with such smug precision. He called my workflows digital clutter, my admin rights legacy drag, and my presence in buyer talks redundant for optics. Optics. That word hit like a slap. Like my job was a prop in his startup cosplay. I didn't speak in that meeting. Didn't defend myself. Just stared at him. Not with rage, not with fear, just cold calculation. I wasn't shocked because I missed the signs. I was shocked because I'd overestimated their competence. That binder on the table wasn't decor. It was the merger's operational spine. Access logs, compliance maps, licensing schedules, everything the buyer needed to confirm we weren't a regulatory landmine. And he didn't even flip it open. All he saw was my badge. All he thought was replaceable. He didn't realize that badge was more than plastic. It was the key to the systems he was trying to sell. And somewhere in my head, a switch flipped. Fine, Brandon, let's play. But when the buyer asks who the real Hayes is, you'd better hope they don't dig too deep. They called me in on a Friday, because of course they did. Nothing screams spineless corporate hit like a 4:15 p.m. invite with no agenda. It was on Teams, naturally. The kind of setup where you know before clicking join that you're about to be gutted by folks who can't spell what you do. There was Brandon, in his polo and ambition stubble, parked next to HR's Karen, who once hugged me for fixing her payroll sync during a snowstorm. Now she was there to nod blankly while the blade fell. We're reassessing the optics of our compliance framework, Brandon started, like jargon made him sound taller. We feel continuity can be sustained without overlapping roles. I let the silence hang. It rattled him. He expected me to protest, to beg for context. But I just tilted my head, like I was watching a toddler try to crack a safe. We value your years of service, Laura, Karen added, dodging my gaze like it was a legal summons. This isn't about performance. It's just strategic realignment. Strategic realignment. Optics. I was being canned by a corporate word cloud. Effective when? I asked, already knowing. Effective immediately, Brandon said, lacing his fingers like he'd seen it in a leadership seminar. We'll deactivate access by end of day. I nodded once. No outbursts, no tears, no snarky who'll handle the audits now. Just a slow breath. Before I go, I said, voice steady, I'd like a copy of my full personnel file. Access logs, promotion records, signed compliance memos, and policy sign-offs. Karen blinked. That's not standard. Neither is axing someone mid-merger, I replied, still calm. But here we are, they complied. I don't know if it was guilt or confusion, but by 6 p.m., a PDF stack landed in my inbox. Every document tying me to Apex, including the signed audit memo listing me, solely, as named compliance officer. I saved it, printed it, and shut my laptop. I didn't forward anything. Didn't wipe passwords or hide Easter eggs in code. I didn't even check Teams for reactions. I just packed a mug that read Audit Before Anarchy, a worn notebook with vendor contacts inked in blue, my binder with the full merger framework nobody bothered to request. And I walked out. No escort, no farewell email, just silence. In the parking garage, the guard, Mike, a guy 1 year from pension, gave me a look. They cut the wrong one, didn't they? I smiled faintly. Not my call. He eyed my binder. They even asked for that? Nope. Idiots. As I drove off, my badge slipped off the console, landing in the passenger footwell. Just plastic now, but still tied to my name, my logs, my imprint in the system. Back in that building, they'd handed the reins to a kid who once asked if compliance audits could be done via Google Forms. They thought I left empty-handed, but I didn't need to take anything. Everything they needed was in my head, and they'd just decided that head wasn't worth keeping. The guy they slotted into my role wore neon sneakers to the dry run call. Not sleek ones, gaudy lime green things that screamed I run marathons for clout. He showed up late, clutching a half-eaten energy bar. No clue about the agenda. His name was Dylan, maybe Ryan, possibly Jet. His LinkedIn bragged rapid scaler, which usually means I copy-paste from Stack Overflow. The buyer's compliance team had flown in from 4 cities for a preview of our integration protocols before their CFO signed off. This was the make-or-break moment before the $600 million hit the vault. They wanted precision. They got a TED Talk from someone who said system sync 3 times in 1 sentence. Can you walk us through the licensing failover process post-close? One buyer asked. Dylan, Ryan, Jet froze. I think we automate that? There's probably an email trigger. Silence. Another buyer, a woman with gray streaks and the patience of someone who'd seen too many deals implode, tried to bail him out. Do you have Laura Hayes' compliance framework? Oh yeah, he mumbled. She had a binder or something. That's when I knew they were done. I wasn't in that room, but I didn't need to be. A colleague, let's call her Jane, I'll keep her name safe, texted me mid-call. He's flailing. Mentioned your name 6 times. Buyer team looks like they ate bad sushi. I wasn't shocked. I'd built every compliance checklist from the ground up, color-coded, cross-referenced, with exact sequences for syncing HR, finance, IT, and vendors in a merger timeline. Each had my signature block, and guess whose name was still on the master copy sent to the buyer? Mine. Brandon hadn't bothered to scrub the metadata, the footer, or the approval log on page 4. They replaced the compliance architect but sent her blueprint. When Dylan, Ryan, Jet started tanking, Brandon jumped in. It's fine, he said. He's just a face. We'll handle it. As if the buyer didn't notice. They just handed a $600 million handoff to someone who once asked how to export audit logs to PowerPoint. I was at home, feet up, sipping chamomile with a Post-it on my mug. Don't smirk. My original checklist sat beside me. Every tab pristine, every protocol airtight. Another text, buyers asking who owns final compliance keys. Room's a graveyard. I didn't reply. I just watched. They were collapsing in real time, and I hadn't touched a thing. No sabotage, no leaks, just silence and their own shortcuts burying them. They wanted optics. Now they had a front row view of failure. He logged in 4 minutes early. That's how you knew it was serious. The buyer's CFO wasn't some tech bro with a hoodie and a kombucha obsession. She was ex-regulator, sharp bob, voice like a tax audit, every word precise like a legal clause, the kind of person who showed up early only to leave early. The room, virtual and in-person, tensed when her name popped into the waiting room. Brandon twitched, muttered under his breath, and nudged Dylan, Ryan, Jet into place like he was staging a school play. They let her in. Her face filled the screen, crisp blazer, no-nonsense glasses, the look of someone who didn't tolerate amateurs, especially not on a $600 million deal. Good morning, she said, nodding once. Before we start, I need to confirm compliance leadership. Is Hayes on the call? Dylan, Ryan, Jet glanced at Brandon, waiting for a lifeline. Brandon squared his shoulders like he was pitching on a reality show. She's no longer with us, he said, blunt as a brick. No context, no finesse. The CFO's face didn't shift, but her eyes narrowed a fraction. Pardon, she said. When was this decided? Brandon cleared his throat. The role was optimized. We've reassigned duties internally. No disruption. That pause, 2 seconds maybe, sank them. The CFO glanced off screen, likely at her legal team, then back. She didn't yell, didn't curse, just said, "Then we're done here." And her screen went black. The call dropped. 10 seconds of pure silence. Nobody moved. No clicks, no shuffles, just the vacuum of a deal imploding. Karen, bless her, reached for her mouse like she could undo it with a refresh. Dylan Ryan Jet looked like he'd been unplugged. Brandon sat, mouth half open, like he'd just realized the bomb he'd lit was under his chair. Across town, I was on my patio, sipping coffee, the mug warm from the morning sun. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, then nonstop. Teams pings, missed calls, calendar updates, all crashing like a digital landslide. I didn't open a single one. I tapped Do Not Disturb and set it for 48 hours. I knew what happened. I didn't need Brandon's voice cracking through excuses, or Karen's frantic emails about clarifying the transition, because I knew something they hadn't bothered to learn. In a deal this big, trust isn't built on charm or decks. It's built on the names in the fine print, the ones who show up at 2 a.m. when a server fails in Frankfurt. They thought I was gone, but my name was still on their paperwork. And now it was the only name the buyer cared about. They tried a follow-up call an hour later, without the CFO, naturally. Just the buyer's junior counsel and 2 rattled liaisons who'd been looped in too late to matter. Brandon opened with, "We believe there's been a misunderstanding," like he was explaining a delayed coffee order, not a $600 million derailment. Didn't matter. By 11 a.m., the buyer's legal team sent a notice. Due to the undisclosed removal of the designated compliance officer and resulting breach of operational trust, Vertex Solutions withdraws its merger offer in full. One sentence, no room for spin. By noon, Apex's legal team was in a war room, joined by sweaty execs from Risk. Karen, fighting tears, was grilled for not flagging the dismissal. Someone from IT was chewed out for not locking metadata on PDFs, as if that was the problem. Brandon paced, blaming legal for not updating buyer docs, then HR for not vetting the new compliance lead. When that flopped, he tried roping in the COO, his cousin, who'd co-signed my exit like it was junk mail. Now he looked like a guy who'd bet the farm on a coin toss and lost the coin. Nobody could reach the buyer's CFO. Calls went to voicemail. Emails got auto-replies, out of office. A polite assistant kept saying, "She's unavailable," which in legalese means, "You're screwed." Meanwhile, I was at a riverside bistro, sipping a ginger latte. My phone buzzed in my bag like a trapped wasp, but I ignored it. I was halfway through a novel where the hero unmasks a con, and I wasn't pausing just because a multi-million-dollar deal was crumbling in my absence. The door chimed, and someone slid into the seat across from me. Laura Hayes? He wasn't in a suit, first sign he was a heavy hitter. Dark sweater, no tie, glasses that didn't scream wealth but precision. I set my book down. "Depends who's asking." He smiled faintly. "Evan Carter, VP of Systems, Vertex Solutions." I raised a brow. "You tracked me to a coffee shop." "You're not exactly off-grid," he said. "Plus, we figured you'd be where the systems don't crash." I laughed once, through my nose. He nodded to the barista. "Mind if I get one of those?" I waved her over. "Make his decaf. He looks wired." He grinned. "You're not what we expected." "Neither were you," I shot back. "We didn't dive into the deal." "Not directly." He didn't ask why I was fired. I didn't ask what their CFO was saying off record. We talked shop, system uptime, compliance bottlenecks, the weird overlap between audit logs and vendor syncs. 10 minutes in, he said it plain. "Your framework caught a provisioning error that could have tanked our CRM migration." "We almost missed it." I sipped my latte. "You wouldn't have missed it. Just caught it too late." He nodded, slow. "Our CFO doesn't want a substitute. She wants you." Her exact words, "If Hayes isn't running point, we don't sign." I looked at him, not shocked, just curious. "And what do you want, Mr. Carter?" He leaned forward. "To make you an offer. One with autonomy and a budget that matches your brain." The barista brought his decaf. He took a sip, grimaced. "You weren't kidding about the decaf." I leaned back. Watching a man on the other side of a $600 million mess, realized the only bridge left was one I'd built. The clause was tucked on page 42 of a pre-signed audit document nobody bothered to read but me. I wrote it. Clause 15.2c, subsection 2. All compliance authority, system continuity decisions, and regulatory access controls reside solely with the named compliance officer listed at pre-signature phase. No substitutions permitted without buyer-side counsel approval in writing. I'd slipped it in quietly, not to trap anyone. Just to ensure some rookie didn't get tapped to run a high-stakes handoff because they had a flashier CV. Apex had skimmed it, signed it, and sent it to Vertex without a second glance. Now that clause was a landmine. Word spread that the deal didn't just stall, it detonated. Someone on Apex's board, probably the risk chair who still used a flip phone, finally read the fine print. And there it was. L. Hayes. No Dylan, no Brandon, just the woman they'd axed. The scramble was chaos. Legal got dragged in to explain how this got approved. HR pointed fingers at outdated access matrices. IT swore they'd updated the protocols. The COO, Brandon's cousin, stammered through a board call where someone asked, "When did you realize Hayes was non-negotiable?" His reply, hindsight. By 1 p.m., they'd hired external counsel. By 2 p.m., an emergency board session was set. By 4 p.m., they emailed me. The message came from Vertex's legal team, not Apex. Laura, per clause. 15.2c, you remain our sole trusted compliance officer. We await your input. No fluff, just a line in concrete. I read it twice, felt it settle, not as vengeance, but as clarity. Like regaining the controls of a machine I'd built. I didn't post about it, didn't crow. I lit a lavender candle, poured fresh coffee, and let the silence hum. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about the truth clicking into place. The emails from Apex came next. Legal, the COO, Karen from HR, still clinging to her desk like a life raft. Subject, urgent, compliance clause, 15.2c clarification. I didn't reply, not yet. I was savoring the moment their shortcuts buckled under one sentence I'd written in plain English. They tried to keep it hushed, an internal memo labeled role reassessment. But when someone in ops forwarded it to the wrong Brandon, there were 4 in the company, it leaked. By evening, everyone knew. The COO's golden cousin was under scrutiny. Brandon, strategic sales lead, nepotism in sneakers, was now pacing between HR and legal like a bot with a glitch. The board wasn't just humiliated, they were bleeding. The merger delay triggered penalties with 3 major clients, whose contracts hinged on the deal. One demanded a free 18-month extension. Another bailed entirely, issuing a press release. Future partnerships require verified compliance continuity. Translation, your screw-up cost us 8 figures. Then came the rumor. Vertex was eyeing a rival in Seattle. No confirmation, but Apex's SharePoint logs for the audit folder went wild. The COO called an emergency board meeting. Sources say he looked like a man standing in a minefield with no map. They asked, "Can we salvage this if Hayes returns?" The answer, "Maybe if she agrees." So the emails kept coming. I replied once. Subject, re-compliance support, body, all communication in writing. My rate is $2,000 20-hour minimum, non-refundable. No small talk, no wiggle room. I knew my worth because now they did too. Brandon was quietly pulled from merger duties, reassigned to market analysis, code for sit there until we figure out how to fire you. The COO tried calling. I let it ring. A recruiter reached out on Apex's behalf. I archived it. This wasn't revenge, it was leverage, clean and surgical. The kind that doesn't need lawsuits or rants, just a contract, and the knowledge that every hour I worked was an hour they weren't imploding. I wasn't smiling, just focused. I reviewed Vertex's VPN credentials, opened my original compliance diagrams, and flagged gaps Apex's team had missed. They wanted optics? I was giving them clarity. 1 billable hour at a time. The consulting contract landed on a Tuesday, a clean PDF from Vertex. No fluff, just terms. External compliance officer, full authority, no intermediaries. My rate was accepted without pushback. The first 20-hour block wired before I signed. At 9:03 a.m., I clicked accept. By 9:30, I was in their VPN. By 10, the CFO pinged me directly. Welcome, Hayes. Let's make this seamless. No onboarding, no HR fluff, just keys, docs, and a goal. Stabilize before Apex figures out what hit them. My original framework, the one Apex ignored, became the playbook. Vertex uploaded it, labeled Hayes Protocol v3. I fixed 4 config errors in 90 minutes, caught a licensing mismatch that could have locked out their supply chain, and sent an annotated audit trail of Apex's oversights. They implemented every fix, no questions. Meanwhile, Apex was unraveling. Brandon was on administrative leave pending review. Code for we're stalling until the lawyers catch up. He was spotted boxing up his desk, dodging glares like a fugitive. HR sent a vague staff email. Leadership transitions align with our core mission. Translation: we sank the ship and can't find the lifeboats. The COO posted a LinkedIn update about navigating challenges. I scrolled past. This wasn't personal. I was just doing my job for people who valued it. The package arrived without fanfare. A plain box, no courier, no signature required, just scuffed cardboard on my doorstep. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was a mahogany frame, not the cheap stuff. A replica of my Apex badge, same worn edges where it clipped to my lanyard. My photo, my name, the title they mocked, Compliance Officer Apex Dynamics. Below it, a brass plaque, engraved, irreplaceable, always essential. I stared at it not with tears or anger, just calm. That badge wasn't just access. It was every late-night audit, every crisis call, every protocol I'd saved in triplicate. They'd called it clutter, called me clutter, but here it was, sent by Vertex, the ones who hired me when it counted. That afternoon, I drove to Vertex's office. I'd chosen hybrid, not for the coffee or keycards, but because I wanted to walk in. The lobby guard handed me a new badge. Gold stripe, new photo, VP, Compliance Strategy, Vertex Solutions. I clipped it on, no fuss. The CFO nodded as I passed his office, tapping his watch with a grin. I nodded back. My office was small, no frills, a desk, a whiteboard, files that needed brains, not egos. I set the framed badge on a shelf. I don't do trophies, but this one earned its place. It wasn't about vindication. It was about being seen, not with fanfare, but with respect, by those who knew what essential really meant. Back at Apex, the merger was dead. No buyer interest. Stock down 39%. Layoffs loomed. Their reputation hung on a leaked report. Critical personnel removed pre-close. Compliance framework collapsed. Buyer withdrew. No names, but everyone knew. The board was still digging through fine print, trying to reverse engineer competence. I didn't track their fall. Didn't need to. I had systems to secure, teams to guide, a job to do. And for the first time, I had a seat at the table, earned on my terms, remembered when it mattered most. Thanks for riding along, you office warriors. Subscribe for more clutch moments and corporate comebacks. Let's make your old desk mates sweat.